The NBA Draft Combine is officially over, and it's time for these guys to start declaring their intentions because there's some very anxious Tar Heels fans out there. Good news, Tom Hanks is about to help us express our feelings.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, May 20th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you've joined us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch, and I want to say a special shout out to all you everydayers, as well as all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. Glad you are all here. Hey, this episode's brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Coming up on the show today, welcome into Monday and a brand new week of Locked On Tar Heels. I want to have a conversation about Coleman Hawkins and look, is Carolina the best landing spot? It seems like it probably is if he chooses to come back to college. The Diamond Heels are rolling into the ACC tournament, but the schedule, in my opinion, does not look favorable for this week. But I want to start by looking at where things are at in this timeline and seeing if we can figure out some news and information and how we can work at expressing our emotions and figuring that out together. And yes, Tom Hanks is going to help us do that. So Sunday was May 19th, marked the official last day of the NBA Draft Combine. And that means that there is now a 10-day final window until the NBA Draft early entry withdrawal deadline is upon us. That will be 10 days after the end of the Combine. So that's May 29th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So right now, today, Monday, May 20th, is day one of that. And they've got 10 days to either say nothing, meaning they're still in, or say I'm withdrawing, or say I'm staying in. That's what we're looking for all these guys, especially the fringe guys who it's like, we don't know. But in the next 10 days, we will. So there's also been some updates at some names that, we've just thrown out there that are solely in the transfer portal are definitely going to be back in college next year. There's been a little bit of talk about Dylan Mitchell and the Tar Heels, at least just, looking into things. Well, he committed, interestingly enough, to Wes Miller in Cincinnati over the weekend. We hadn't heard of any official communication by North Carolina in a couple of these next guys, but just fellas that I thought it would behoove Carolina to look at, and that's Noah Waterman from BYU, who committed to Louisville. That'll be critical later in the show today. And then Samford's Achor, who committed to K-State, which will also be important later on the show today. So again, not that there had been much, if any, connection to those guys and North Carolina outside of, hey, Carolina should look at them. But it does mean that the pool is getting smaller. And each time that pool shrinks and a name of a front court player comes off the board, it's more like hand-wringing. It's more like, hey, where are things going? And I can tell you from conversations that I've had with people in real life, from conversations of people messaging me on every social media platform known to mankind, I can tell you from our Discord that everyone is antsy. Everyone is like, people in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, literally all day Sunday, we're sending memes and GIFs of like thumb twiddling or, just waiting, sitting around clicking your watch, waiting for things to happen. That's where everyone's at. And it's a really tough spot to be. And as I sat around this weekend thinking about it, one of my favorite all-time movies, Apollo 13, popped into my head. If you've never seen it, it's a phenomenal movie and you need to stop sometime this summer and watch it. It's really, really great. I will watch anything that Tom Hanks is in, but there's a lot of other great actors and actresses in it as well. But basically what happens is this is 2 space shuttles after Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, first person to ever do it. Apollo 13 has this mechanical issue while they're in flight. They have to still go to the moon, slingshot around it, because that's the best way to get back. Unfortunately, one of the things they have to do is turn off basically all their electrical stuff, because they don't have really enough power and amperage and things like that to get all the way home if they don't shut it down. But at some point, in order to be able to get things powered back up, they only have so much power and so much battery life left that they got to do it in a certain order. So everyone back on Earth is trying to figure out what this order is, what this procedure is, so that they can send it up to the space shuttle so that they can get it all powered up and be ready to come back to Earth. So I set all that up to give you the quotes of the scene. So again, the crew's waiting for this re-entry procedure, and after all they've been through, everything that's happened to try to get them to stay alive and make it back home, they're really skittish, they're really tired. So Tom Hanks is the like commander of everything. His name's Jim Lovell, and he says, "Houston, we sure could use this re-entry procedure up here. When can we expect that?" And Houston says back, Deke Slayton is the character's name, "That's coming real soon, Aquarius," which is the name of the ship. And then Tom Hanks says back, and this is the critical line that has stuck with me this weekend: "Houston, we just can't throw this thing together at the last minute. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to get the procedure up to us, whatever it is, and we're going to go over it step by step so there's no foul ups. I don't have to tell you, we're all a little tired up here, and the world's getting awfully big in our window." End quote. And that's where I feel like I am at, and probably all of us are at, is if you've been with me and with our show throughout this whole thing and with our Locked On community, you know that my thing has been, be patient. Things are going to happen. But we're to the point now where, if you'll allow me the analogy, the world's getting awfully big in the window, and we're getting really close to this thing, and there's not much opportunity left. So here's what needs to happen. We need to know who's coming back to college. We need to know who wants to be a Tar Heel. And whatever that plan is, we're going to walk through it together step by step. And I don't have to tell you, we're all a little bit tired of waiting. And I got to say, the world's getting awfully big in the window. You feel that? Like we're getting close to the deadline, and there's a point of no return that's coming. And I want to know who's going to be on this roster. And I know that you do too. So Tom Hanks, thanks for expressing what we're all trying to feel. Now, in terms of these guys specifically, I think we're kind of to this point where right now, the three very specific names are Ven-Allen Lubin from Vanderbilt, who visited last week. There's been no news publicly since his visit. And given the conversation that surrounded his visit last week, where it's like, oh, a lot of people expect him to commit like on site. That didn't happen. And from rumblings and from reporting from THI and Inside Carolina, it sounds like his handlers, his people, want him to take other visits before committing. And so Carolina is ultimately like, all right, cool, we're going to keep looking. Maybe we'll circle back around. So, right, with that. Ugonna Onyenso from Kentucky, the transfer, 2 years at Kentucky, has 2 years of eligibility. He had a pro day last week, was not in the combine, but hosted a pro day. And, you know, as you continue to look at mock drafts, you never know how truly accurate they are. And some team might become enamored with him and say, hey, we're taking you guaranteed at this point in the second round. But it doesn't seem like he's in a good position from a draft standpoint. So I think he should come back to school. Coleman Hawkins, I think the guy that the majority of Tar Heels are like, hey, if it's one, I'd like him. I'm not saying everybody feels that way, but a lot of people. He is still yet to announce his future intentions. And the same thing from mock drafts. If those are accurate, it seems like it would be absurd for him to stay in the draft because he might not even get drafted. And so it feels like he, like Ugonna Onyenso, is probably in his best interest, especially financially, to come back to college for another year. And look, it's a weird season to be in because in some ways, I don't know if you feel this, it feels to me like a little bit of an eye of the hurricane moment where since the end of since the end of when Carolina lost to Alabama, it's been this whirlwind of transfer portal this and names, and you got to get to know this person and not this person. They're off there, all of that. But it's kind of calmed down now as a lot of people have committed, and we're in this waiting game of some of the higher profile players to either stay in the draft or withdraw from the draft. So it's kind of quiet right now. But over the course of the next 10 days, we're going to start hearing names. I mean, we could hear some today, Monday, but we just don't know when that's going to happen and who it's going to be and if they're going to stay in the draft or pull out. But once that happens, it's going to be another frenzy, and that, like, just let's get this figured out. Let's get visits going, all of those kind of things. And so that's the tenser it becomes as we get closer to this deadline. So that's where we sit today. And, I've got to ask questions like, as you look at some of the names of other schools that it sounds like some of these guys are in on, seems like Carolina might be the best landing place for Coleman Hawkins. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about LinkedIn, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for your role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just some other job board. They help you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't even actively searching for a job, but they might be open to just that perfect role like yours. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make this whole process easier for you. They even launched recently a feature that helps write job descriptions for you, making, again, this process even quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So if right now things are down to, at least with the current crop that Carolina is looking at, it's down to Lubin, and it's down to Hawkins, and it's down to Onyenso. For me, as I said on our show last Thursday with Coach Rob, if Carolina could only land one of those guys, give me Coleman Hawkins. Now, what's interesting is the reporting on Coleman Hawkins, at least most recently, is that if he comes back, it seems like there are 4 schools most in play, and that would be Arkansas, that would be Louisville, that would be Kansas State, and that would be North Carolina. And when I see that lineup of schools, I get a little bit giddy. Do you know why? Because of all 4 of those schools, the Tar Heels are easily in the best position to welcome in Coleman Hawkins. Let me tell you why. Louisville, going like this time last week, had 4 open scholarships and were looking really thin in their front court. And I was like, oh man, I think that could be a landing spot for Coleman Hawkins outside of North Carolina. But guess what? In the course of the past week, Louisville has welcomed in 3 front court players, 2 out of the transfer portal and 1 high school commitment. Louisville is now down to only 1 scholarship player and one scholarship available. And of that scholarship, quite frankly, I think it's like a James Okonkwo level player that they need to get. It's not going to be somebody that should be expecting a bunch of minutes. It's somebody that's like, oh, I'll come there and be a backup to the other guys. That's where Louisville's at right now. So that to me says, Louisville, you're out. Of the other 2, Kansas State and Arkansas are those other 2. State last week, and I said it earlier in the show, just picked up Achor. They also had already received a transfer portal commitment from Bay Fall. And so if I'm Coleman Hawkins looking at that situation, I say, that's probably not the ideal situation for me because Kansas State already has some guys positionally where I would be. And also, all due respect to Jerome Tang, their head coach, it's Kansas State. And then also Arkansas, which is clearly a nice place to land. A lot of people are wanting to go there. But they've already gotten Adou Thiero, which I know isn't necessarily a direct competitor to Coleman Hawkins positionally, although, he'll probably play a good bit of 4. You've got Jonas Aidoo, and you've got Zvonimir Ivisic. And those are a little bit more direct competitors to Coleman Hawkins minutes. And so if I'm Coleman Hawkins, I look at that, and yes, Arkansas is a good place with a good amount of money to go to. I know John Calipari is a desirable coach to go play for, but quite frankly, he's not a great coach. He's not a great X's and O coach who doesn't develop, which, by the way, could be a reason to say, hey, maybe Ugonna Onyenso has a lot more room to grow. Anyway, that's not even the point why I talk about that. I just say all that to say Arkansas also is quite loaded and doesn't necessarily have a ton of minutes available in the front court. So you rule out Louisville and Kansas State and Arkansas. And Carolina's sitting here saying, look, buddy, come learn Tar Heel, and there's a ton of playing time, a ton of minutes available for you. That to me just makes a ton of sense. So Coleman Hawkins, instead of maybe not even getting drafted, or maybe getting drafted very late 50s, and who knows what that means, wouldn't you, instead of playing mostly in the G League, probably in front of not many eyeballs at all, not making much money, wouldn't you rather come back to college and become forever connected to one of the most premier programs in the entire history of college basketball, having tons and tons of eyeballs on you every time you step on the floor, making more money than you would make on a two-way contract? It just makes sense, Coleman Hawkins. Come to Chapel Hill and put yourself, just listen to everything that you would hear Cormac Ryan say coming out of this year. Listen to everything Harrison Ingram has said, Brady Manick. That could be you, man, saying those exact same things. Coleman Hawkins, it's time for you to come and be a Tar Heel. Put that in your pipe, smoke it, come on back, pull out of the draft, come be a Tar Heel, right? It makes sense. Do it. Now, the ACC baseball tournament is set to kick off this week, yes, but the schedule sure doesn't favor the Tar Heels unless you ask Coach Forbes who picked it. So we'll get into all that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. Woo! How about the visitors winning both game sevens on Sunday in the NBA? That was bonkers, huh? And FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. How about some College World Series odds? We're about to talk about the Diamond Heels. Texas A&M has the best odds at FanDuel, plus 600 to make the College World Series. Clemson has the best ACC odds at plus 1,200. Carolina, for some reason, only has, yes, the number one team in the ACC, has the fifth best ACC odds at plus 3,100. So let's prove FanDuel got that wrong. Let's show them by visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go ahead, get in on the Tar Heels action there and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Last weekend, with their sweep of Louisville, the Tar Heels, the Diamond Tar Heels, I guess I should specifically say, clinched the ACC Coastal Division for baseball, and then just needed one win over Duke or one Clemson loss on the weekend to be the outright ACC regular season champs and lock up the number one seed in the ACC tournament this week. So things got off to like a frustrating start. This was a Thursday through Saturday series instead of Friday through Sunday at Duke. Thursday, the Tar Heels lost 3-5 and really in a lot of ways kind of shot themselves in the foot defensively, which has been something of an Achilles, forgive me, heel most of the season. But then came back Friday, won 6-4, clinching that outright regular season title and number one seed. And then Saturday, the floodgates opened, had a couple massive innings. I mean, it was just super fun to watch unfold there at Duke. Almost got to put them out of their misery in the last regular season game by run ruling the Blue Devils, but couldn't ever get it up to that 10-run margin at the end of an inning there in the last couple innings. So still, Carolina ends the regular season winning another series, and this one at Duke. You love to take that momentum into the ACC tournament. So Carolina finishes the regular season 41-12 overall, 22-8 in the ACC, 32-2 at home at Bosch. Great stuff there, especially as you look ahead to almost assuredly hosting a regional. Carolina doing what they did at Duke this weekend really helps in terms of getting to be not just a top 16 national seed, which allows you to host a regional, but a top 8, which would also guarantee you get to play at home as long as you keep playing up until the World Series. So Carolina really helped themselves by winning that series at Duke and could do a lot more to further that seeding nationally by doing work this week in the ACC tournament. So here's how it works, the ACC tournament. Only the top 12 teams make it, and they are put into 4 pools of 3 teams each. Carolina, by virtue of the number 1 seed, it's not like a snake where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No, Carolina gets the lowest seeds of the second run of teams and the third run of teams. So as the number 1 seed, they get the 8 seed and the 12 seed. So unfortunately, though, the 8 seed is Wake Forest. Somehow, Wake has fallen all the way to an 8 seed. I don't know what's going on with this team, but I do not like seeing them in our pool. So Pool A is Carolina as the 1, Wake Forest as the 8, Pitt as the 12. Pool B is Clemson, Louisville, and Miami. Clemson's the 2 seed. Pool C, NC State is the 3, and then Duke and Virginia Tech. And Pool D is Virginia as the 4, Florida State and Georgia Tech. So basically what happens is Tuesday through Friday, so starting tomorrow, you play just kind of pool play. You play each of the other 2 teams in your pool once. Whatever team has the best record coming out of those games moves on to Saturday's semifinals. So, I mean, it seems like, oh, pool play, that's great, but you only get 2 shots at it. Now, here's the nice thing. The best record advances. So if you go 2-0, you win both games, you're guaranteed to advance. If you go 0-2, you're guaranteed to not advance. If you go 1-1, like if all 3 teams go 1-1, whatever's the highest rated seed in that pool moves on. You don't do any tiebreakers or anything like that. That is the tiebreaker. So the nice thing is, if let's say Carolina beats Pitt but loses to Wake, but Wake beats Carolina but loses to Pitt, even though Wake beats Carolina head-to-head, they would still advance because they're a better seed than Wake. So that's it's kind of a weird system, but that's what it is. And then on Saturday are the semifinals at 1 and at 5. That's ACC Network. And then the championship game is Sunday at noon on ESPN2. So Carolina's schedule. So basically what happens is there's 3 games a day, Tuesday through Friday, 11 a.m., 3 p.m., 7 p.m. Carolina is off Tuesday and Wednesday. It's nice in that regard. You get to rest up a little bit. They play Pitt Thursday at 3 and then Wake Forest Friday at 7. Now, by virtue of being the number 1 seed, Coach Forbes and the Tar Heels get to pick when they play, and basically picked we want to do Thursday, Friday, because that allows us to keep basically our regular weekend rhythm, right? But it does put them in a weird position because Wake, for example, plays Pitt on Wednesday, not Thursday, and then they are off until Friday night against the Heels. So they get a day of rest in between. Heels play Pitt Thursday, play Wake Friday night. So Wake, Carolina is the last game of pool play, but the winner of Carolina's pool is in the semifinal. That's the first semifinal Saturday. So basically, if Carolina advances to the semifinals, they'll play at 7 o'clock Friday night and again at 1 p.m. on Saturday. And I know they're used to stuff like that on weekends, but still, it's not ideal. And by the way, if they make the championship Sunday, that'll be a 4th straight day of competition. So I hear Coach Forbes' argument of wanting to line it up like a normal weekend, but man, that's just tough to me. It's potentially very, very taxing on the pitching staff. And so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. And honestly, if you get to the championship, Carolina has already done enough in the regular season to almost assure themselves of a top 8 national seed if they get that far. But B, whoever it is that you're playing is also going to be on their last legs from a pitching standpoint as well. So it's probably a bullpen game and you just do what you do. So basically, Carolina can line it up like a normal weekend. DeCaro will probably go on Thursday against Pitt, Sprague on Friday against Wake. And then if you're fortunate enough to make to Saturday, you got Hawk to go against whoever you'd play in the semifinals. And then basically all hands on deck on Sunday. You throw every arm you have, because then you wouldn't start the regional until the next Friday. And so that's fine. But this is the portion of the season that I have feared the most in terms of those pitching injuries. If you have Knapp and Boaz still going right now, you feel a lot better about the depth that you have. But because both of those guys are out, it's like, that right now, like, think how different Sunday would feel if you know that you've got Knapp, Boaz, and DeCaro going Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then either Sprague or Hawk to go on Sunday in the championship. I mean, it's like, awesome, great, love it. So we'll keep our eyes on that. But look, the thing is, you just got to take care of business. You got to beat Pitt on Thursday, and then you got to come back and beat Wake. And quite frankly, like, don't mess around with tiebreakers. Like, go win both of those games. That's what you got to do. Now, women's golf was the other team in action this weekend. Unfortunately, so the way it works is it's stroke play, 4 rounds of it, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But there are 30 teams in it. All 30 teams are only guaranteed the first 3 days of competition, because then after 3 rounds, only the top 15 teams continue on and the top 9 individuals. Unfortunately, after Sunday's action, the Tar Heels were tied for 25th at plus 49, and Kayla Smith was the low individual Tar Heel at plus 4. She was tied for 34th. So that means, unfortunately, the Tar Heels are done. And so we have to wait and see what the men's golf team is going to do. Just great that the women are getting to this point now, and we expect to continue to see them rising the way the men have done. It's just the men are a little bit further ahead in that trajectory, and we expect massive things from them when the men's NCAA championship starts very soon here. All right, gang, there's Monday. We're kicked off. We're rolling on a new week. It's great to be back together. To be able to express all the, like, come on, we need news together. And the world's getting awfully close in the window, but hopefully we'll have some news before we crash into it, right? That's it for today's episode of Locked On Tar Heels. Thanks so much for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to the show on audio and video, very easy to do. Just find your favorite audio podcast platform, search Locked On Tar Heels, hit subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, do the same thing. Little subscribe button right down there in the corner. And by the way, hit that bell to get all notifications. So if there's news and I come live with a show, you get notified and can tap right in. If you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, it's free to join. The links in the show notes. We'd love to have you. Come for the Tar Heels, stay for the community, because it's incredible. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow. But until then, peace.